So I had the great fortune of being born to immigrant parents, George and Verna Roberts, who were both born in Guyana, South America. And I grew up with Verna Roberts, who was a single mom, one of three boys. And a lot of who I am today and what I do is based on that upbringing, that interaction with just a phenomenal woman. I remember my mom working several jobs, one of which was a seamstress. But although she did not have the good fortune of having educational opportunities that I was fortunate to be a part of, her emphasis on education, the value system that she instilled in us, was something that has guided and continues to be the platform on which I stand today. My mom was extremely serious about education. I remember there were times when she would wake us up at 5 in the morning and just have us sit at the breakfast table, having completed our chores, and pushed and made sure that she guided us towards completing every bit of schoolwork that we needed to. And so my mom, although struggling and working several jobs, still had this value system where she emphasized two things. One, respect for community, respect for your elders, and two, making sure that you were putting a lot of emphasis into your studies, into your academic pursuit. Having attended high school in South America, it's amazing how I sometimes juxtapose the two systems between that of the British system and that of the system that in which I now lead a school. And one of the things that I look at in terms of a major difference is how much adults are willing to give students multiple chances in order for them to be successful. My mom, being a single parent, never allowed any of life's circumstances or the challenges that she faced at the time to prevent her from always setting high expectations for her three boys, making sure that she pushed us so that we can be the best that we could be. And it is because of those opportunities and that interaction, I understood and inculcated the true value of education. I also practice the value of respecting not only my adults, but respecting every person with whom I come into contact. And I think that sense of understanding that everyone has the possibility of doing amazing things keeps me in this place of humility, where I continue to interact positively with anyone with whom I come into contact. And I always say to my friends and to family, any person with whom I interact or with whom I come into contact, I want to make sure that I leave them with an indelible positive impression, because I'm extremely, extremely respectful. I remember there were times when my brothers and I would wonder about where our next meal was coming from. I remember my mom waking up in the mornings and saying to us and laying the table out, sometimes with only 3 table settings. And I would ask her, Mom, why aren't you eating? And she would say to me, this is your time to eat, and I have to rush off to work. Knowing very well that instead of being a stranger to the truth and not telling me the real reason, she would make an excuse very quickly to make sure that her boys were provided for. I remember asking my mom, why is it that you're working so hard? And her favorite phrase to me would be, hard work is pleasing to God. Being the devout Christian that she is. And it would always make me smile, even in my own moments of despair and frustration, understanding that I know that my mom is not necessarily telling me the truth about why she was not partaking in and sharing a meal with my brothers and I. But what those experiences has instilled in me is, in spite of your circumstances, family is important. In spite of what you're going through, you should always be respectful. And so now when I think about everything that my mom has done, I try in my adult life to go through this idea of I can pay her back. When I think about everything that she's instilled in us and everything that she has done for me particularly, I know that I'll never be able to repay that debt. And so the only way that I can do this is to enjoy the pursuit that I've now embarked upon. And that's a pursuit of education leadership. I remember being a high school student and what most people would think of as being a jock, having participated in several different athletic events, how it really allowed me to maintain balance, how it kept me very busy. And so there was very little time for anything other than my academic pursuit and my athletic involvement. And so when I was not participating as a student athlete in high school, I was either at the library studying or assisting my mom with those household chores. The kind of chores that most teenage boys were probably not very interested in. I say now that my inclination to exercise my culinary skills is as a result of my mom dragging me by the collar and having me stand in the kitchen and showing me how to make some of the most basic dishes. Just because of mom's guidance, because of her persistence in making sure that she instilled some key values in my brothers and I think it's one of the reasons that we are now considering ourselves to be well on our way to being positively contributing members of this society. Everything that I learned in my childhood is due to the adults with whom I interacted, either my mother or some phenomenal teachers or an amazing high school principal that I had. So my foundation in terms of my educational pursuit, although it started in high school in Guyana, South America, I continued to build upon it with my enrollment in a small college in Baltimore, Maryland, Coppin State University. And I ended up at Coppin either by accident or through divine intervention, whichever one you choose. But I was a student athlete. And I knew that my mom, although there was this desire to attend college or a university, it was not affordable to my family and I. And so as an athlete, I remember my club coach deciding to shop me around with the possibility of getting an athletic scholarship. And so I visited several schools and universities that I had dreamt of attending. And most of those conversations ended in about 5 minutes, where the coaches would say to me, "You are not running fast enough. You can walk onto the team, or we can only purchase books for you." And I remember vividly, it was on our way back to New York, my club coach and I, he said to me, "I know of a small school in Baltimore. We should probably stop there," because I met the coach. And we did. And we met the coach and had a conversation. And the coach said to me, Ernest Barrett, he said, "I am rebuilding my team. And although you're not running fast enough based on our conversation during the last 30 minutes, I believe that you are disciplined enough to come here and do well." And I did. To fast forward, for the next 3 years, all of the schools that rejected me, I made it my business to make sure that none of the athletes ever crossed the finish line before I did. And what that instilled in me is this idea that all it takes is for someone to give you an opportunity or a chance for you to do well. I went on to become multiple All-American honors at a Division I school, both academic and athletic. And ultimately, an agent saw me and decided, "You should run professionally," and so I did. And so while pursuing graduate school in New York City at St. John's University, I continued to hone my skills as a track and field athlete. And eventually I competed not only on the collegiate circuit, but I became a gold medalist at the Central American Championships in Barbados. I was selected for and participated in 2 World Championships in Seville, Spain, and Maebashi, Japan. And then the pinnacle of athletics, 1999, ran an Olympic qualifying time and ended up competing as an Olympic athlete in the 800 meters in Sydney, Australia. Who would have thought, young man, Guyana, South America, single parent, struggling parent, you are at the pinnacle of your athletic career. But I did not stop there. And again, the foundation goes back to everything that my mother, Verna Roberts, instilled in me. She would say, "Son, you should never stop, never be satisfied, always keep going." And so once I completed graduate studies at St. John's University, I tried to balance that with competing as a professional athlete in the circuit in Europe, in Canada, in Asia. And I was having a blast. But there was something that was missing from me. And so I decided to pursue doctoral studies. And I did at Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland. While competing, while training, while in Sydney, Australia, and this speaks volumes about really getting up after the fall, I was stripped from behind 100 meters into my race. And here I was in the best shape of my life. I thought I was so adequately prepared that no one could have told me that I would not have become either an Olympic finalist or a medalist. But I did not. I literally was stripped, and I watched slowly as all of my competitors in the field left me. Went back to the Olympic Village and cried like I've never cried before. Came back to New York feeling ashamed. But it was not until I decided to make a phone call to the New York City Board of Education that I came out of that sad place in my life, that place that was filled with melancholy, because I had put so much into my athletic pursuit. And I started my career as an educator. Special education teacher, Franklin Kaelin High School, Brooklyn, New York. It changed my life forever. Some of the most challenging students who were thought of as being incapable of achieving success. And I looked at them and realized, as I sort of juxtaposed their experiences with my Olympic experience, how many times did they fall, but no one was there to pick them up? And so I worked with those young people, and they served as a tremendous inspiration to me. Wanted to compete again and prepare for Athens, Greece. In preparing for Athens, Greece, I got into the best shape of my life, and about 6 weeks before the Olympic trials, 101-degree day, I'm training, I'm having a good time, and I felt an excruciating pain on my right leg, tore my meniscus. It was at that point that I decided to put my spikes in the basement and embark upon my educational pursuit with 110% of my energy and time. And I did. Having completed studies at Morgan State University, then matriculated to engage in several postdoctoral certificate programs at Harvard University, while serving as a teacher in Baltimore City, it was then that I found my true calling. My grandmother would always say to me, you know, if you want to make God laugh, you should tell him of your plan. And it holds true today. I just knew that I was going to come back and as an Olympic gold medalist and be in a Wheaties box. But instead, here I am working with young people. And it's the most gratifying feeling that I know now in reflection that no Olympic gold medal would fulfill. It's the most phenomenal experience that I'm having, working with young people as a teacher during the early part of 2000 through 2005. Great experience. I continued to work in education and decided that I wanted to have a much larger impact. So I wanted to pursue education leadership. And I thought that if I'm having such an amazing impact on 100 or 200 students as a teacher, what if I'm placed in a position where I can have a larger impact on the masses? And so I joined a program called New Leaders for New Schools that prepares principals to work in some of the most challenging communities in our country. Once I pursued the leadership preparation program, I served in my first principalship in what was known at the time as the City that Reads, or the Home of the Wire, whichever one you choose, in Baltimore, Maryland. The epitome of an urban community, working with young people, selling them dreams of success, and making sure that I serve as not only someone who was selling these dreams, but facilitating the dreams as well. And so although I had an amazing experience as a classroom teacher, profound interactions with a number of students, with community members, my most gratifying pursuit to date as an educator is that of a middle and high school principal. My first principalship in Baltimore, Maryland, a school that was characterized and labeled as a persistently dangerous school by the state superintendent. A school that the community, they were up in arms because they wanted to close the school because they felt like, and if I should quote one person in the community who was a prominent citizen, she said that the students and young people were animals and they did not want them in the community. And so I had a couple of opportunities to select a different school to lead. But this was a school that was in a much wealthier part of Baltimore. And I thought, this is not where I want to have an impact. And instead I decided that I was going to take on what people perceive to be the challenge of leading the school in Canton, Baltimore, the southeastern part of Baltimore. And so when we got there, of course, most of what the community was saying was very true. Students did not have an interest in education. Parents were not supportive. And so we were given the opportunity to zero-base the staff and rehire an entire new staff, and we did. And one of the things that I emphasized and shared with all of my teachers and staff was this idea that I needed them to give students multiple chances. And where did this idea of multiple chances come from? It started because of my high school experience. You see, when you look at me now, you wouldn't be able to tell because I'm dressed in a tailored suit and a beautiful tie, but you would never know that during my teenage years, I had this propensity to engage in pugilist encounters. And for no apparent reason, there was just so much anger in me. And so on one of these occasions when I engaged in a pugilistic encounter and caused so many injuries to the young person who was on the other side of my fist, my principal decided that this is your last chance, you have to go. But knowing my mom, the same young lady that I spoke about who instilled so much values in me, and she also had a hand that she would correct us with. And so I sat there and I pleaded with my principal because I did not want to have to go home to my mom with a letter of expulsion. And my principal decided to give me another opportunity. Interestingly enough, when I qualified for the Olympic Games in Sydney, Australia, and my agent was able to secure round-trip airfare and ticket for someone else, and my mom, who loves me to death, looks at me and says, you know that I love you. And I said, I know you do. She said, but geographically, you also know where Australia is located. And I said, I do. And she said, okay, I'm going to support you from the living room watching you on television. And I thought, who should I give this amazing opportunity to? And I thought of my principal, but was not able to get in touch with her, and heard several different rumors she was no longer with us. And I thought, I never got an opportunity to say thank you to the principal who gave me another chance. And had she not given me a second chance, I would not have been where I am, matriculated through some of the most prestigious institutions in this country. I just completed another educational pursuit at Georgetown University, McDonough School of Business, where I earned an executive master's in leadership. And as I was collecting and receiving my diploma, again, I flashed back to the chance and opportunity my principal had given to me. So here I am, enjoying every aspect of my pursuit, an Olympic athlete and an educator, and it's because I was given another opportunity. So it is in that philosophy that I operate every single day. And if you ask any adult in the building that works with me at the academies at Anacostia in Southeast DC, what is my mantra? They will say to you that my mantra is that I have to give every student 7 second chances. What am I talking about? You see, mathematically speaking, if you give someone 7 second chances, it means that you're giving them 7 times 2 chances. And so every young person deserves 14 chances. And it's inconceivable to me and every teacher in my building for any student to exhaust 14 chances. And so my teachers know that before you kick a young person out, before you decide that they're going to fail, before you tell them that they're not going to make it, you have to exhaust each of those 14 chances. And so, having moved from Baltimore to Washington, D.C. 4 years ago, to a school that was considered the most dangerous high school in Washington, D.C. A school that is now, 4 years later, the most successful turnaround high school in the city. A school that has produced 2 Gates Millennium Scholars in the last 4 years. A school that rivals every application in charter schools for scholarships. A school who believes and prides itself on giving every young person 7 second chances. A school where right now our valedictorian just received a full academic scholarship to one of my alma mater, Georgetown University, and she has been homeless for the last 2 years. And she talks about the fact that this is a school that has given her an opportunity and a chance. But what she does not know is that this opportunity and chance comes from the person who is at the helm of the organization, instilling and making sure that he encourages every adult to inculcate this idea and philosophy of 7 second chances. You see, if you give a young person 7 second chances, it's highly likely that they're going to be successful. You see, every student who knocks on our doors, regardless of academic deficit, regardless of your criminal rap sheet, regardless of your life circumstance, regardless of what zip code you reside in, you know for a fact that you are entitled to 7 second chances. We are the school that is still considered to be the dumping ground of most DC schools, public or charter. But I pride myself in saying that it doesn't matter where you're coming from. If you knock on the doors of the academies at Anacostia, your possibility of becoming successful has just increased exponentially, because you're coming to a place that not only values test scores, doesn't only value a discipline system, but we are so intricately engaged in this idea that we believe that there's something inside of you that if we give you a 7 second chance, there's a tremendous possibility that you are going to be successful, because it's our mantra. It's the way we operate. And as I continue along this road of being an educational leader, whether I become a district leader or a policymaker, every decision that I make will be steeped in my philosophy of giving every single person with whom I interact a 7 second chance. That's my life's dream. That's my life goal. And in doing that, I have to tell you, at the academies at Anacostia, we've seen an increase in every graduating class, in the college-going culture, in the reduction of discipline, but more importantly, we have seen in an urban community, Southeast DC, the epitome of urban America, where students who were not given opportunities, who were disadvantaged, discouraged, considered to be incapable, we're giving them hope, and will continue to do so for as long as I have breath in my body and the ability to lead schools.